I had a bit of a rough week at work this week, so I dressed up as extra and ridiculously as I could, put on one of my favorite new wigs, and decided to hopefully entertain you. I entertain myself, so. That was probably entertaining. Chapter 5. I think we're in chapter 5. Yeah. The Nahon Valley. My nights are haunted by Allerton and the stranger with him as I make my way through 14 nights of unfamiliar places. I'm traveling quickly, but reaching the Nahon Valley cannot happen soon enough. At least now I am in the final part of the journey through the small forest that separates Nahon from Phaon. Yesterday I passed the fork in the road that separates the road to Nahon from the main forest trail, but I do not know how many days it will be until I reach Nahon. With my time in my own head, I start to imagine what Nahon will look like. With my time in my own head, I start to imagine what Nahon will look like. I have seen places of the great Nahon Lake, with a city on the opposite side and the large river winding down Mount Nahon and separating two cities, Sierra and Portloe. Sierra is named after the man who killed the monster in the Nahon Lake, and Portloe is almost as low as the lake and runs a thriving port. Tarlin's history is indeed rich. Sierra is ruled by Sir Wakant, and Portloe by Lord Antaragon. Both cities are wealthy, but apparently eyesores and warts sticking out of the tranquil valley. I am on my way towards Sierra, which sits just below Nahon Mountain, where I must climb to reach Carath, Rillis, old captain. The trees finally end, and I take my first step out of them in 4 days. My breath catches as I look below. I am at an elevation. The trees cut off before the trail leads down a smooth grassy hill into the largest amount of water I have ever seen. The lake catches the light and I see spots until my eyes adjust. I spot the river running into the lake separating the two stone-walled cities, and at last, the Nahon Mountain. Known for its excellent mining properties, but more importantly, it is known for its extended peak. It takes 2 days to reach the top of the mountain, but an entire week to explore the top. The mountain surrounds the Nahon Valley and watches all that goes on below. It marks the end of Tarlin, revealing on the other side a vast wilderness inhabited only by beasts and stray madmen. I descend the hill into the valley, passing by thriving orchards, gardens, fields, and pastureland, entering a small village. As the light fades, I hope to find a place of comfort to sleep, and also to groom myself for tomorrow when I reach Sierra. I am disappointed to find only a small inn, where a suspicious innkeeper allows me a small room for twice its worth in silver. My exhaustion must be great, for after washing my face briefly and removing my boots, I fall asleep on the disintegrating straw mattress. I wake up to see 3 men with covered faces in my room. Startled, I cry out. They cover my mouth and gag me before I can call for help. Though my eyes are blurred from sleep, I can make out that these men are soldiers, Tarlin soldiers, for I notice the mark of whitestone on the sleeves of their tunics. I sit up to get away, groggy, but they push me down forcibly. "Remember, we must not hurt him," one of the men exclaims. "Sorry, sir." I take my advantage and kick one of the men away, but the other 2 come on top of me. They tie my hands and cover my face with a sack. I struggle with the ropes, but because I cannot see, I stumble around and squirm until I am exhausted. Then they tie my feet. Check the streets for any snoops," My heart is pounding in my chest as I am manhandled and dragged out into the outside cold. My mind runs through a million questions. Has some enemy of the royal family discovered my identity? Has someone I unknowingly offended come to harm me? Am I being taken to be robbed? They tie me up to the back of a horse on my stomach, where I nearly vomit into the sack covering my face when the beast starts off galloping. For hours I lie on my stomach, trying to breathe in my gag and tasting my dinner numerous times in my mouth. The movement is beyond nauseating when I cannot see where I am going. As the time goes by, I start feeling so miserable I want to die. I'm sure my wrists and ankles have started to bleed by now, but I barely think about that as I am too focused on the sick feeling I have in my gut, trying to breathe and contain my fear of what my end fate will be when this miserable ride is over. We stop. I was not sure at first, because we had been going for so long, but at some point, the movement stopped. At first, my feet are untied and I am taken down from that brutal animal, when the sack comes off my head along with the gag. As they push me towards a large stone castle, I regain my vision and begin to observe my surroundings. The rooms are richly furnished, almost mimicking the palace. I assume I am being taken to the ruling lord of either Syrah or Portlow. I stumble up a few flights of winding staircases, followed by spear point. Finally, they stop in a large decorative room. They untie my wrists and leave the room wordlessly. Rubbing my sore wrists, I gauge whether I am more terrified or angry. A man enters. He is tall and skinny. His gray and brown beard and graying hair attempt to portray an aged, rugged warrior, but his skulking eyes betray his lack of nobility. He is draped in blue and red with a huge gold chain around his neck. Clearly, the lord of the city spends an exceptional amount of time on grooming to account for his lack of physical qualities. He nods to greet me. I feel like a beggar as I stand in the elegant room in my worn rags. "Greetings," he says, slowly slinking towards me, but keeping enough distance from me to allow him to escape if I prove dangerous. "Not to seem rude, my lord, but may we skip the formalities and you explain to me why I was forced from my bed in the middle of the night and brought here in an extremely unfriendly way?" I say. He glances up at me. "Oh, were they unfriendly? I shall have to talk to them about that." "Regardless, may I know my crime to merit this outrageous escapade?" In my anger, it occurs to me that I sound less like a messenger and more like a royal. "No crime, not that I know of, merely a precaution," he replies. He waves me to an elaborately carved seat and begins pacing the room. "You see, this part of Tarlin is so remote that on the rare occasion that we have unannounced visitors, the rulers of Nahon see them immediately to discover their business, to make sure they are here for the good of Nahon." My mind puts the pieces together quickly. Nahon is corrupt and overtaxes the people. If a royal spy or noble official enters Nahon, they get to them before the people can. Good system. After studying him, I deduce he is not Lord Antaragon, for he has the face of a greedy coward, not a cruel ruler. He probably does Antaragon's dirty work here in Syrah, the poorer city of the Nahon Valley. "I am a messenger from General Rayliff, bearing a personal message to his old commander, Karaf," I say. "I have no business in or with Syrah or Portlow, and I am extremely unhappy to have been interrupted in my journey." "Do you have proof of this?" he asks. "Yes, I have a letter from General Rayliff to Karaf, but your men did not include that for our trip." He blushes. "All right. Your things have been brought to this castle, including your horse, for you to be on your way." I nod. "Thank you. May I be leaving?" "Since you have no business in Karaf, I ask that you at least accept our hospitality for breakfast and hot water for you to wash up." The man is clearly afraid I will report my unpleasant treatment back to Rayliff. My two daughters, I'm sure, would be pleased to hear news from anywhere but the Nahon Valley. I know it is a ploy to dissuade me from reporting his and Antaragon's practices, but I am not in a position to decline. I am taken to a pleasant and moderately furnished room where a hot bath is already drawn for me, a new set of clothes, not too extravagant, is laid out on an armchair for me after my bath. If they spent less bribing every spy that enters the land, they might not even need to overtax the people to pay off their excesses, I say to myself.